The afternoon sun hung warm over the busy streets of Sydney, and the cafe on the corner of George Street was packed with the usual mix of office workers, tourists, and locals enjoying a quiet arvo break. The clinking of coffee cups and the hum of conversation filled the air. At a small table near the window sat a lean Asian man dressed simply in a dark shirt and black trousers. He looked calm, almost invisible among the crowd. A cup of tea sat untouched in front of him as he quietly observed the street outside. Most people didn't recognize him. But the few who did whispered softly to each other. It was Bruce Lee. He was visiting Australia for a short martial arts demonstration tour, but today he wanted nothing more than a peaceful afternoon away from cameras and crowds. That peace didn't last long. Across the cafe, a tall, broad-shouldered bloke named Darren leaned against the counter laughing loudly with his mates. Darren was the type who loved attention. He lifted weights, played rugby on weekends, and never missed a chance to prove he was the toughest man in the room. As Darren scanned the cafe, his eyes landed on the quiet man by the window. Something about him triggered Darren's ego. The calm posture, the quiet confidence. Darren nudged his mates. "Oi, look at that bloke sitting there like some sort of monk," he chuckled. "Bet he thinks he's tough." His mates laughed. Darren grabbed his coffee and strutted over, already planning a little show for the crowd. He stopped beside the table. "You right there, mate," Darren said loudly, making sure everyone nearby could hear. "You look a bit lost." The man slowly turned his head. His eyes were calm, focused. "I'm fine, thank you," he replied politely. The accent was soft, controlled. Darren smirked. "Yeah, you don't look like you're from around here. You some sort of karate guy or something?" A couple at the next table glanced over. The man simply smiled. "I study martial arts," he said quietly. That was all the invitation Darren needed. "Oh, here we go." Darren laughed loudly. "We've got ourselves a kung fu master." Several people in the cafe began watching now. Darren placed his coffee on the table and leaned down. "Tell ya what," he said. "Why don't you show us some of that kung fu stuff? Give us a little performance." The man shook his head gently. "I'm just here to enjoy my tea." But Darren wasn't done. He suddenly grabbed a chopstick from the table and waved it around dramatically. "Come on, mate. Show us a move. Or are you just pretending?" A few people chuckled nervously. The quiet man looked up at Darren. Still calm. Still relaxed. "You shouldn't embarrass people for entertainment," he said softly. Darren scoffed. "Oh yeah, what are you gonna do about it?" A moment of silence fell over the cafe. Then the man slowly stood up. He wasn't tall, but something about the way he moved made the room feel different. Controlled, balanced, effortless. Darren crossed his arms. "Go on then," he said. "Let's see this kung fu." The man stepped slightly to the side. "All right," he said calmly. But just once. Before Darren could react. Thwack! A lightning-fast movement flashed through the air. The chopstick in Darren's hand snapped clean in half. No one saw exactly how. Gasps filled the cafe. Darren stared down at the broken pieces in his hand. "What the?" Before he could finish, the man lightly tapped Darren's shoulder. In a blink, Darren found himself gently but firmly guided backwards into a chair. It happened so smoothly that Darren didn't even realize he had sat down. The entire cafe went silent. The man calmly picked up his tea again. "Martial arts is not about fighting," he said. "It is about control." Darren's face turned red. You moved too fast," he muttered. The man gave a small smile. "That's because you were looking for strength," he replied. "Not speed." A young waiter who had been watching suddenly walked closer, squinting at the man's face. Then his eyes widened. "Wait, are you?" The waiter froze. "Mate," he whispered to Darren, "do you even know who this is?" Darren frowned. "No." The waiter looked at the calm man with awe. "This is Bruce Lee." The entire cafe erupted into whispers. Phones came out. People stood up. Darren's mouth slowly fell open. Bruce Lee. The martial arts legend simply nodded politely and finished his tea. "I didn't come here to fight," he said. "I came for peace." He placed money on the table and walked toward the door. As he passed Darren, he stopped briefly. "Next time," Bruce Lee said gently, "don't try to embarrass strangers. You never know who they might be." Then he stepped outside into the warm Australian afternoon and disappeared into the crowd. Inside the cafe, Darren sat frozen, still holding the broken chopstick. His mates were completely silent. One of them finally spoke. "Mate." Darren slowly looked up. "Yeah. You just tried to bully Bruce Lee." The entire table burst out laughing. And somewhere down George Street, the quiet man in black continued walking, calm, humble, and faster than anyone could ever imagine.